Hi, and welcome to Stressed, the podcast to develop your stress resilience. Being ambitious and successful while living a happy life is possible. Learn how you can better cope with stress in day-to-day situations by applying tools and techniques that work for you. My name is Julia Arndt, and I'm extremely grateful that you decided to check out my podcast today. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome back to Stress, the podcast to develop your stress resilience. My name is Julia Arndt, and I'm super excited that you are here today to spend a little bit of time with me on learning about how to stop overthinking, something that I'm sure that we are all dealing with. And today I want to really dive into what is happening in your brain when you are overthinking all the time, why it is negative for you to be in this negative thought cycle at all times, and what you can obviously do in order to stop overthinking, which is the topic of today's podcast. But before we're jumping into today's podcast episode, I have a really exciting public announcement to make. And 1 week before we are opening the doors of the From Stress to Empowered 2020 live online coaching program. For those of you that have been listening to my podcast for a while now, know that I had an 8-week online coaching program live this summer, but I had closed the doors for the program over the winter months. But we are coming back in January 2020, and I have not decided fully yet on the specific date because we're still trying to figure out what is going to work best for you. But as soon as we have all of the details and all of the information ready for you, I will obviously communicate that to you. But I'm super, super excited to be able to offer this again to you, this online coaching program, because it's been helping already a lot of people to help manage their stress and remain a high achiever in their job or in whatever they're doing. So I'm really excited to offer you the online coaching program, fresh and new for the new year in 2020. We took on a lot of feedback as well from this week's program, and we have made it better. So I'm super excited to help you get a fresh start in January 2020 and to help you remain a high achiever over the course of the year. So if you want to have more information about the program, if you want to get on the list already in order to receive more information as soon as it is available, please head over to my website, www.bluemountainmindfulness.com/courses, and you can just leave your name and your email address there. And as soon as we have everything ready to go, you will be notified. And what is really exciting as well is that I have decided to open the doors to register for the event on December 2nd, which is Cyber Monday. So I do have a special deal for you if you are signing up in the first 3 days starting December 2nd. So all of the information will be available on the website, of course. And if you are interested to participate in the live training starting in January, I would love to hear from you. So make sure that you're heading over to the website and you're leaving your name and email address so I can let you know as soon as all of the information is ready and available and ready to go. Okay, so that's all I wanted to share with you on that front. As you can tell, I'm super happy and very excited about this because I know that this is going to help all of you to really better manage your stress in your life. And if you want to start the year strong, and if you are finally wanting to make changes in your life, this is absolutely for you. Okay, so with that said, let's jump back into our today's podcast topic that I want to talk with you about. Because let's be honest, overthinking is extremely hard on us. Especially as high achievers, you are constantly thinking about all these different things. You have a constant stream of thoughts on your mind about, did I do everything correctly today? Did I get everything done that I needed to get done? You're probably going through all these different kinds of to-do lists that you have laying around and things that you have to get done by, especially before the end of the year. So let's jump into today's podcast topic, how to stop overthinking. I'm sure that you can very much relate to exactly this topic. we are constantly having thoughts on our mind, right? Especially as high achievers, we are constantly thinking and analyzing, have we done everything correctly? Have I got everything done that I needed to get done today? Oftentimes this happens during the night or just when we are about to go to sleep, because that's when we are not distracted anymore by all of the things that are going on during the day. But also overthinking happens honestly at all times of the day, especially when you're a high achiever, and especially, I guess, when you're a human being, which we all are, and we are all tending to overthink at one time or another. Sometimes it can be a traumatic experience, maybe something really bad happened in your family, maybe you lost a partner. So whatever it is that's going on in your life right now, I really want to help you better understand what you can do when you are overthinking and where that comes from. Well, let's be honest. The first thing that we probably think as high achievers when we are overthinking is by thinking about a topic over and over and over again. We kind of think that we can resolve whatever is going on in our minds. We think that this question that has been really bothering us and that we're trying to find an answer to is finally getting resolved when we are just thinking hard enough and long enough about it. But unfortunately, that's not how it works, and it can sometimes lead to a lot of frustration and obviously also things like depression and anxiety. So why do we start overthinking in the first place? Where does that come from? And overthinking is definitely linked to traumatic experiences or to really bad experiences that we've had in our life. And it is linked to anxiety and depression. That doesn't mean that you are anxious or depressed. By all means, that doesn't mean that. But, negative thoughts and thinking negative thoughts on a constant basis is not good for you, and it can lead to anxiety or depression in the long run. So it is really important for me to talk with you today about how you can stop that overthinking cycle and how you can break the cycle of negative thoughts. But before we are jumping into a couple of different tools and techniques that you can use in order to stop overthinking, I want to explain to you a little bit more what happens in your brain when you are thinking at all times. I'm sure that you have heard me talk about this book multiple times before, but I really love it and I'm really connecting to the content of it. So here it is again. I highly recommend to you, if you are interested to learn more about neuroplasticity, then go ahead and read or listen to the book from Joe Dispenza, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And what he's talking about is that what happens in our brain when we are overthinking or when we're doing something over and over and over again is that when neurons fire together, they wire together. So we are basically creating a habit. We are creating a habit of, no matter what it is, that can be anything from overthinking, of course, but also by doing certain things, bad things, right? Like we're always looking at our phones before we're going to bed. We don't even think about this anymore. It's become an autopilot kind of thing. So everything that is in your life and everything that's on autopilot has created a pattern in your brain. And in order to break that pattern, that's not so easy. That's really not that easy, right? We know with anything in life that we are doing, especially when it has become a habit and we're not even thinking about it anymore, that we're not even thinking about that we're overthinking, for example, that has created this deep-rooted pattern in our brains. And in order to break that pattern in our brain, well, that's not so easy. So I want to talk with you about a couple of tools and techniques today that you can use in order to stop that overthinking pattern. And just a heads up, this is something that you need to practice. As anything in life, especially when we're talking about breaking habits, breaking the habit of being yourself, right? Breaking habits, that takes time and practice. And why does that take time and practice? Well, because over many years and many repetitions, you have learned a certain thing. You have learned to always overthink certain things, right? To take things very personal, for example, as well. I can totally relate to that. This is something that I had to completely unlearn, and I'm still working on that, of course, every day as well. But I'm a very sensitive person, and when somebody says something to me, I take it really too hard. So learning to not take things too personally and overthink what people might have meant by saying certain things was really, really hard to do. So I'm sure that you can relate in one way or another. You're listening to this podcast right now, right? Because you are trying to understand and you're trying to learn how you can stop this overthinking pattern. So really, really important. So the first thing that you should know is that when neurons fire together, they wire together. And so we need to basically unlearn the brain. And this is what Joe Dispenza is talking about in this book as well. We need to unlearn the brain before we can relearn something. And in Joe Dispenza's book, he talks about meditation. And as you know, for me, it is always really, really important that you know that not meditation is the be all kind of thing, and that in order to break the overthinking pattern, you can only do meditation. There are so many different tools and techniques that you can use in order to start the process of creating new patterns in your brain besides meditation. Meditation is very powerful and a lot of people love it. And actually one of the things that's very interesting to know is that if you are a really great overthinker, you're probably also a very great meditator. And I'm just going to leave it like that, but you should be thinking about that, because what meditation does at the end of the day is to focus our mind on a specific thing, which in meditation it's our breath, and usually we are used to concentrating our mind on a certain thought. So that is why meditation is one of the tools that you can use in order to stop overthinking. Here's another one for you. Let's take a deep breath together. And just like that, we have broke up kind of that cycle of thinking about something that's been on our mind, maybe for days or weeks or months. Breathing and meditation are very powerful tools in order to stop overthinking and breaking that cycle in our brains. And as I said before, oftentimes when we are overthinking, we are thinking about negative experiences. We are thinking about something that's bothering us. We are thinking about a project that needs to get done. We're thinking about our to-do lists that are lingering around in our brains. We are also thinking about personal things, right? We're thinking about we are always wondering if we are good enough, or if we have done everything we could in order to make sure that people like us. There are so many things that are on our minds all day long. And it is really important that you understand that this must not be the neutral. This must not be the normal state of mind that you have. You can break the cycle. And again, it is not easy. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of awareness, and it takes a lot of concentration as well. Because what we are trying to do when we are trying to break that cycle in our brain is that we're trying to create new neurological pathways. And we are trying to get out of the autopilot, which is called autopilot in the first place, because it is extremely difficult to break the autopilot. And we're trying to learn something new. So how that works is the first thing that you need to do in order to stop overthinking is, as always, you need to start creating awareness that you are overthinking in the first place, and that your mind is wandering off into all these deep questions and all of these worries and all these fears maybe as well, that you need to take control over. So first of all, it's important to be mindful and aware. That is the very first thing that you need to know. And then you want to obviously create a new pattern in your brain, because you want to stop overthinking in this case. So once you are aware that you are overthinking, ask yourself the question, am I worried about something that happened in the past? Am I worried about something in this present moment? Or am I worried about something that is in the future? This is a really important question because many times we are worrying about something that is either in the past or in the future. We very rarely worry about the present moment. Unfortunately, not very often nowadays anymore, we find ourselves in the present moment in the first place. Another great book that I can recommend at this point is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I love this book. I am listening to this book almost every day, and it is extremely powerful and it has absolutely changed my life forever. But we are very rarely in the present moment, but the present moment is the most powerful moment that we can live in. So now that you have created awareness of overthinking, ask yourself the question, am I worried about something in the past, in the present, or in the future? If it is not the present moment and you're worried about the past, then ask yourself, can I change the past? And unfortunately, you cannot change the past. So it is really, really important that you're moving on from this. It is really important. And I would highly recommend to you in this regard to listen to my podcast episode on forgiveness, because forgiveness is an extremely powerful tool when it comes to stress management. And this is all that I want to say about this, because if I will talk about forgiveness again in this podcast, it's going to be a 1.5 hour long podcast. And I want to make it as short and sweet for you as possible. So past, just know if you're having worries about the past, make sure that you're heading over to my podcast episode on forgiveness. If you're worried about the future, then ask yourself the question if you have an impact or an influence on the future. So does it make sense that you're worrying about this specific situation or a specific thing in the future? And if the answer is yes, then that's great, because then you can go ahead and take action. Taking action is actually a tool that you can use when you're overthinking. Let me give you an example. So this week on Monday, I did my 3rd holiday mini training on how to manage stress during the holiday season. And this week's training was all about the questions of the audience. One of the participants asked me about what they can do when they're starting to get really worried about the bookkeeping and tax season. Because they said to me, I know that bookkeeping and the tax season is almost upon us. We are only getting into the holidays, and after the holidays, I know that I need to start taking care of my taxes, and that thought really stresses me. And this is actually the perfect example. So what I told them in this case was, well, you can obviously, this is something that you're worrying about that lies in the future. And you ask yourself the question, is that something that I can influence? And the answer is probably yes, because what is probably worrying you at this point is that you maybe haven't done your bookkeeping as well as you should have done over the course of the year. Or you're worried about finding a great CPA. No matter what it is, ask yourself the question, can I influence this? And if you can influence it, then go ahead and take action and make a change or do something about it. No matter if it is finding a CPA or sitting down and, sorting your books and, taking down all of the things that you expense this year. But if the answer to this question is that there's not really anything that you can do at this point in time, no matter if it is because you're too busy at work or because you need somebody's help, then that's okay too. But just get really aware of what is in your sphere of influence. And as soon as you know that, you can take action. And taking action is really important. And it's an important tool when it comes to breaking the cycle of overthinking. Because when you're taking action, you don't have to think about it anymore. You're getting into action and you're doing something about it. So this is really important. And this is one of the first things that you should be thinking about. So let me summarize this one more time. So first of all, how to break the overthinking cycle is to start creating awareness around that you're overthinking in the first place. Then the second thing that you should be doing is you should be asking yourself the question, is the thing that I'm worried about right now part of the past, part of the present moment, or is part of the future? And then once you know that you can't change the past, so you head over to listen to the podcast episode on forgiveness. If it is in the present moment or in the future, you can ask yourself the question, does whatever I'm worried about lie within my sphere of control or within my sphere of influence? And if the answer is yes, then you can take action. If the answer is no, then you need to let it go. And this is not so easy. So let's talk about a couple of different options and things that you can do if the answer is no, but you're still being plagued by thoughts on your mind. A couple of things that I'm doing and that I want to share with you that have been very, very powerful for me are the following. The first thing is that when we are overthinking, we are usually thinking toxic thoughts. We are thinking negative thoughts. So in order to counteract this is to think positive thoughts, to literally force our brain to think about something positive and something good that is happening in our life. Find something good about the situation. This has been an extremely powerful tool for me. And one of the things, and you might have listened to this podcast episode from last week with Lucas Dunham on holiday pitfalls, but one of the things that I actually learned from Lucas was to see an opportunity in every challenge that we have. And see how that just kind of shifts the mindset of like, oh, this is something really challenging and maybe something really shitty that's happening to me right now, to, wow, look at this new opportunity. Look at what I can learn from this experience and how I can get stronger in the process. So creating awareness around something positive that we can take out of a situation can be really powerful. And what I do with that is that every morning I'm forcing myself to think positive thoughts. Because yes, me too. I am waking up every morning and my mind is full of thoughts. Thoughts of all the things that need to get done, thoughts of maybe things that are lingering around or that I'm worried about. And so even though I'm not even checking my phone in the mornings anymore, because this is also a very powerful technique that I have started to use for myself, I still have a lot of thoughts on my mind. I don't even need my phone in order to get into this thought pattern. I have them anyway. So what I'm doing, and you know this when you have listened to my podcast for a while, I am actually journaling, and I'm doing a gratitude practice at the end of every journaling exercise that I'm doing. And I'm asking myself the question, what am I grateful for today? What is something positive that even has just happened in the last 30 minutes? Or usually I do it for the last 24 hours as well. So I'm thinking about what has happened in my life yesterday that was extremely positive and it made me happy, where I could help another person. Could also be something small like, the sun was shining today, or I felt really relaxed today. Like, how did you feel? What did you do? Who did you spend your time with? All of these things can be parts that you can integrate into your gratitude practice. And it is a powerful way, especially when you find yourself in a negative thought pattern, to shift your attention. Shift your focus, refocus on something positive. And you don't have to write that down necessarily. I believe in writing it down because it's more powerful, because our thoughts are also very powerful. Because if we're trying to think about something positive in our minds can very quickly wander off in all these other different directions of like, oh, hey, what was I grateful for today? I went out with my friend Susie. Oh yeah, Susie has this problem with this guy. And then all of a sudden we're thinking about Susie's problems and her relationship problems, but we're not thinking about the first thing that we were supposed to be thinking about, which was a positive thought of what we did. You see where I'm going with this, right? And this is why it's important to write it down, but in question, you can always do this exercise in your head and break the negative thought pattern. So gratitude is extremely powerful and something that I'm doing on a daily basis, because unfortunately, we have learned to always look at the negative things and to always worry about things that haven't gone as well as we wanted them to go. Perfect example, we're receiving a lot of positive feedback about maybe, for example, a training that we gave, and there's 100 people that said that we did a great job, and there's one person that said we did a really crappy job. And which one of those feedback responses will we remember? Most certainly the negative one. And this is also something that comes from our reptilian brain. So it comes actually from prehistoric times, where our brains were created and where our brains were developed. And our reptilian brain was always looking for danger. And it was always looking to make sure that we are safe and that we are protected. So in order to keep us safe, we always had to look for the danger, and we had to make sure that we are in control of everything. So the reptilian brain is also responsible for negative thoughts, not really for overthinking in the first place, but definitely for looking out for dangerous situations. So all of these things I hope are helpful for you, because as soon as we start to understand what is going on, we can actually start doing something about it. And the final thing that I want to share with you today in order to start to stop overthinking is one thing that I'm using as well a lot, because again, I am a person that tends to overthink a lot. As you know from my past as well, I have been diagnosed with anxiety and burnout, and it is definitely also because I had a lot of negative thoughts on my mind and I didn't know how to break these negative thoughts. Is a couple of really cool techniques that I have again learned from Joe Dispenza. And what he is saying is that when you are finding yourself in this process again, where you finding yourself overthinking something, then teach your brain that it needs to stop or it needs to change. So when I have a situation that I completely overthink, and even though I'm trying to not think about this certain situation anymore, it still just comes back into my mind over and over and over again. Every time it does happen, I literally say either in my head or I say it out loud, but not super out loud, of course, stop or change. For our brain to register that this is something that I don't want to do anymore. This is a pattern that I want to break. This doesn't mean that I'm shoving the thoughts away and that I'm trying to not think about this anymore. Because what we also know, and what is really important to know, is that what we resist persists. So if we are trying to push something away, it will come back just more and more and more and more. So we're keeping the thoughts exactly where they are, but when they are there, we're telling our brain, hey, register this, change, or stop, or do, have the brain think, oh, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. This is a way of how you're creating a new habit. And because you have probably overthought in your life many, many years, and it has become something very automatic in your life, this is not an easy pattern to break. Right? We are trying to change our brains here, guys. This is really, really difficult. This is not an easy task, and it takes a lot of practice. And we're actually talking about this as well in the 8-week online coaching program. We're looking, for example, in the 8-week online coaching program on your limiting beliefs, thoughts, and assumptions. Because limiting beliefs create a lot of stress in our life. So it's really, really important that we're looking at these different things. And then the last thing that I really love to do in order to stop overthinking is to reshift my focus. I don't want to say distract, because when we're distracting ourselves, it just means we're kind of shoving the thoughts and feelings away. But really to refocus my energy and my attention. So what can this be? How can this look like? So that could, for example, be to watch a movie. I mean, I'm not, a defender of doing some being addicted to watching movies all the time, but it can be something nice to do. Go out with a friend, meet a friend, and distract your energy. One thing that really helps me, and you know this as well, hopefully, and maybe you don't know this because you're listening to the podcast for the first time or you're watching one of my videos for the first time, but I love to go outside in nature. This always, always, always helps me. When I have a shitty day, when I'm not feeling great, when I'm having a lot of negative thoughts, when I have a lot of self-doubt, when I have a lot of worries, when I have a lot of fears, when I'm not satisfied with the things that are happening in my life because I'm a high achiever and have very high expectations of myself, then I go outside in nature. It always helps me. Movement, fresh air is really, really helpful for me, and I love it. And I can tell you that in 99% of the times I will always feel better when I come back home, because I am more relaxed. I have moved my body. Some people say that it doesn't help them because they will continue to overthink. What I do, sometimes when I go outside and I have a lot of thoughts on my mind, I either send literally my sister a voice message or a friend a voice message, and I just talk about what's on my mind to get it out. That's really important to kind of express our feelings. And then I'm listening, for example, to a podcast episode, one of my favorite podcasts. So going out in nature and exercising can be a really great way to refocus your energy and do something for yourself. Again, this is self-care. This is important for stress management. Overthinking is a way of stressing ourselves. So really finding new ways to not overthink are really great stress management tools. Some people might like to go exercise in the gym, or they might like to go for a run or for a bike ride. That's okay. No matter what you're deciding to do, it's the right thing. Know that it is the right thing. And be very, 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 very patient with yourself in this process. You're going to fail. It is really important that you're setting this expectation here, and listen to me, high achievers, that you are setting the expectation of failing. You will fail over and over and over again in this process because you have been overthinking for so many years, and there are so many pathways in your brain that go down this route over and over and over again that you need to practice this many times in order to get out of it. They usually say it takes 6 to 8 weeks, obviously, to create a new pattern. Some people talk about 4 weeks. No matter what it is not enough. You will not be perfect after 4 to 8 weeks. Even though you're practicing it maybe daily, it is a great way to start it, but it's not going to change it, because as soon as you are having a traumatic experience again or a negative experience, it will be easier for your brain to remember this old pattern that has been there for 20 years than to do this new pattern and go down this new neurological pathway that has been there for 4 weeks or for 8 weeks. That totally makes sense, right? So I hope that this was helpful for you today. I hope that you took away a couple of different tools and techniques of how you can start to stop overthinking, because at this point you know that it's not going to be easy, but again, you are a high achiever as well, and you know what it takes to work hard and do something. So just remember that you can do these different things. It is just a question of how often you're doing this. I would highly recommend to you to start with a gratitude practice every day, because it's a fun thing to do. It's a fun way. It's fun to think about things that you're really happy about and that you're grateful about. And if you think about it, if you're, for example, spending 4 minutes per day on gratitude, you're spending 1 hour per 30 days on being grateful. And over 365 days, so over 1 year, you're spending 24 hours of being grateful. And I think that's a very beautiful thought. And this is what I want to end today's podcast episode with. Thank you so much for watching this video today. And thank you so much for listening to the episode. If you know someone in your life that is tending to overthink, that is struggling with overthinking, that maybe even has anxiety and depression, then make sure that you're sharing this episode with them. It is really important that people understand that they can do something about overthinking, that this is not just a state that they have to live with. This is the easy way out. It's the easy way to say, this is just how it's supposed to be. This is just how it's always been, and it will never change. Of course, this is so much more easy than, tackling something that has been unhealthy in your life, and that comes to everything in life, no matter if it is about habits, no matter if it is about overthinking, no matter what it is, it will always take more effort from your side to change something than to just keep the state as it is. So thank you so much for listening to today's podcast episode and for watching the video maybe on YouTube. Don't forget, on December 2nd, 2019, I'm going to open the doors to register for the next From Stressed to Empowered online coaching program. And I would really love to see you there. So thank you so much. With gratitude, Julia. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be extremely happy and grateful if you could leave me a comment and a 5-star rating. If you know someone who would benefit from the information I talked about today, please feel free to share it with them, no matter if it is your friends, your colleagues, and or your family members. You will always find all links and a summary of the podcast in the show notes. It would be great if we could connect on Instagram or via email. You can find all details of how to find me in the show notes as well. In that way, you can also send me any questions that you might have. And as I mentioned, I also have a wonderful YouTube channel now where you can post comments and questions, so please reach out. I'm glad you're listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for your trust. With gratitude, Julia.